A Muslim, a Buddhist, a Christian walk into a room. I know, okay, where's this guy going with this? The reason why this joke was seen as funny was not because of the witty punchline that follows, but more the randomness of these individuals being in the room in the first place. So in terms of the joke itself, it actually directly relates to my life. I'm not saying my life's a joke. I don't know why you guys laughed, but it's two of my closest friends are of Buddhist and Muslim belief, and so that makes me the Christian. So here's kind of a picture of us. So together we made a group called Brotherhood, and the whole purpose of this group is a sense of empowerment, where we kind of, everyone from different fields come together, and it's more a collective kind of, a collective way for us to kind of progress in our respective fields. So we have a Sri Lankan, there's me, the Samoan, we have an Indian, we have a Maldivian. I know, 50 Shades of Brown right there. Sweet, so in the new age we live in, this type of ideologically and kind of multicultural, diverse friendship would be perceived as very normal. However, to think 30 years ago, this type of friendship would be seen as very rare and somewhat quite weird. So that brings me to the topic that I look forward to kind of sharing with you today, and I'm actually looking forward, I'm really optimistic about it. It's why multiculturalism is the end of the world as we know it. So what is multiculturalism, and why is it the end of the world as we know it? So multiculturalism is several societies, or several ethnicities residing in one society. So in Aotearoa, we have more nationalities and ethnicities than than all the countries in the world combined. Our top 5 ethnicities are New Zealand European, Māori, Chinese, Samoan, and Indian. I can go on and show you migration graphs of how a multicultural society is developed or how one comes to be. However, to be honest, that's very boring, and to be quite frank, it will just take too long. So I feel like the best way to kind of show the development of a multicultural society or how one comes to be is by looking at its evolution of its media entertainment. So I chose United States and the evolution of its US TV shows over time. The reason why is, like every other show, every other premise to a business, is you tailor to your most profitable demographic. And so as we saw the US consumer base diverse over time, we saw the producers of shows notice this, and so we saw a change in US TVs over time. So we'll start in 1969. We have the Brady Bunch. So a lot of you may know this show. I see a lot of heads nodding. You're probably from the very old demographics. This is a very old show. So it's about a white middle-class family residing in LA. Throughout the seasons, you never really see anyone from an ethnic minority background. So now we move to the 20 years later. You think we'll get some diversity in there, and we move to Seinfeld in 1989. Still white Americans. The lead actor is George. However, the majority of the jokes they have is more tailored towards the white demographic. And so now that kind of shows the hold of white Americans in the 60s and the 80s. Now we're going to go to the 90s. So a lot of you are thinking, we're close to the 2000s. We're going to have at least one person in there, right? No, 1994, we had Friends. So a lot of you here know this show. It's a very popular show. So if just for those who don't know, Friends is Friends is about a group of friends in their mid-20s, currently residing in Manhattan, New York. We're just going to stop here. I'm going to go on a little tangent about the show. So out of the 236 episodes that are aired throughout its seasons, there were only 12 appearances from characters from ethnic minority backgrounds, and all up accumulate to 2 hours worth of screen time. The reason why I find this astonishing is because they're in Manhattan, New York, where white Americans only make 48% of the total population. So why is this group only hanging out with white people? That's the question I'm currently asking. There's only one explanation. It's because they're scared of minorities. That's it. No, it's true. In the 90s, there was a huge backlash against immigration, and so I feel like Friends is a great representation of that. And so that's why it's historically accurate. So now we're going to move 4 years later to 1998, and we have this is when we get our first kind of ethnic minority in there. So we have That 70s Show. Yes, we got our first ethnic minority in there. Yes, yeah, like for all of us, we got one in there. However, one could perceive this as a step forward. However, the majority perceive this as kind of a 5-step backwards, because despite the show diversifying their cast, this is the first instance of bringing in tokenistic characters. So Fizz, a lot of you know, one of my favorite characters, he had to act as a really ambiguous South American, and you never really know where he's from. And he had to do really flamboyant qualities, only because they didn't want him to kind of go over the masculinity of his white male caste. So despite it kind of diversifying, we see that the tokenistic characters let the ethnicities define who they are. And so for us growing up, a lot of us who are not of the racial majority, we see that we're defined predeterminedly because of our race. And so now we're going to move all the way to the end, to one of my favorite shows of all time. In 2010, we have Community. That diversity, look at that down. So one of the reasons why this is one of my favorite shows of all time was because not only was it racially diverse, it was ideologically diverse. And one thing that kind of stood out for me was the fact Ahmed, who's someone of Middle Eastern origins, he just acts as Ahmed. His nationality and who he is doesn't define his character. He just acts as who he is. And that's why it resonated with me, because I want to live in a world where I'm not predeterminedly judged because of my skin color, because of who I am. And so that's why I really love this show. So now we're going to compare it to statistics. I've talked about how this progressed in terms of multiculturalism. Now we're going to get some facts in there. So as you can see, the dark blue is in the 1960s. So white Americans made up 89% of the entire population. So when you look at the Brady Bunch, you don't blame them. You don't blame them for not having any ethnic minorities, because no minorities lived there in the first place. Then we go to the previous year, the light blue, 2010, where we've seen that statistic drop 25%. And now white Americans only make 68% of the entire population. And in the next 70 years, we can see that change. White Americans would perceive to only make less than half of the entire population. And that's the scary part. And that's what everyone finds very scary. Multiculturalism, people are taking over, what's happening? You can see the US elections, as well as the New Zealand election. There's a disrupt between different ethnicity groups, and you can see a transfer of power. And so that's the second part I'm talking about. Why multiculturalism is the end of the world as we know it, and why does it affect us, the millennials? I'm a visual person, and when I mean visual, I mean when the TEDx community came up to me and asked me I was going to do a speech in the next month, all I did was draw pictures. And so what I'm going to show you is, for me, what I call my analogy. And so I want you to picture this. Here's a house. This house represents New Zealand's economy, and the people inside represent us, the people. So here's some basic rules, just so you guys have to follow. The moment you miss one kind of really crucial instruction, the whole thing will not make sense to you. So you have to listen to this one. So for the house to fully work, so New Zealand economy fully work, you need total of eight people in there, which is perfect since there's 4 flatmates on each story. So the bottom floor represents labor-intensive jobs with less emphasis on required knowledge, i.e. formal education. So they're the construction workers or hard laborers. I can assume the jobs that a lot of us here wouldn't want to do. Admit it, we don't like lifting. So in comparison to the top floor, which are less labor-intensive, however, they're more focused on required knowledge, so again, formal education. These people are literally our members of parliament, those high in the corporate ladder. So in comparison, the top floor has more influence than the bottom. So now we move to the next step. So in the 1800s, in New Zealand history, the top floor would have mostly comprised of white men with wealthy backgrounds, and the bottom mostly comprised of Māori and women. And so in the 1960s, we saw a slight change in that. Due to the slow population growth, New Zealand found that less people working in their factories, less people working hard, very labor-intensive jobs. And so what they did is that they opened their doors to other places to bring in immigrants from the outside. However, they wanted to bring people that fit the bottom floor requirement. And so they brought in Pacific nations. And so in the 1950s, this was the Great Pacific Migration. This is where my parents came in this wave. So as you can see, we have people walking from a 1-story house to a 2-story house. So as you can see, they only wanted people to fill the bottom floor. Now we look at the updated picture. The top floor still mostly comprises of the same people from previous times. However, the bottom's now filled with those with Māori backgrounds, Pacific migrants, as well as migrants from all over the world. Now, I know what you're asking, how does this relate to us? Well, in terms of us millennials or the previous generations, we're more focused on the stairs. So the stairs represent the transition from the lower floor to the upper floor. So for this analogy to work, we're just going to assume to get to the top floor, you need to go through formal education. So from primary onwards. So in 1985, we saw the first wave of millennials take their first years of primary education. And in 1996, we saw the same group go into their first year of education. The reason why I chose these stairs, this is the only moment where you see all of the groups come together. Despite the bottom floor being full of migrants, full of people from different areas, the only time they ever really communicate was through work or never really intimately, like compared to education. So the best example to kind of say this, to kind of portray what I mean, is I need 2 volunteers. So hands up if anyone wants to volunteer. I just need volunteers, hands up. We got 1, yes, I need 1 more. Oh, it looks like you'll take a while getting out, so I'll just pick this one, sorry. So if you have to 2 volunteers, I'm using this to just kind of show you why, how the stairs affects us and what I mean. So what was your name, sorry? Alicia, nice to meet you, Alicia. And what was your name, sorry?
Krishna.
Sorry? Krishna, nice to meet you, Krishna. So I want you two to kind of stand here, grab your phones, if you have your phones, or pretend you have one, okay? Sweet, so kind of stand like moderately away from each other, okay? So in the society we live in, do you think these two at all would communicate at all? So you're on your phones, do you think, maybe in the romantic comedy, you know, you see someone from a distance, oh my God, she's the perfect one for me, and all that kind of stuff. But no, this is the real world, so that would never happen. So let's say, so I want you to kind of come stand here, okay? So I want you to close your eyes, okay? I want you to come here, I want you to close your eyes as well. So just come in closer. Okay, close your eyes. Okay, so close your eyes. Okay, for this exercise to work, I need everyone to be quiet, okay? So please don't say anything. Okay, on 3, I want you to open your eyes and just react the way you would normally react. 1, 2, 3. Thank you for the 2. So please put a hand together for these 2. Thank you, grab a seat, cheers. So the whole purpose of that exercise is, regardless of how awkward the situation is, all we can do as human nature is say hello or do a greet. So that's what the stairs is. Because there was a huge emphasis from our previous generations to take these stairs upwards, we are now squashed together to a point where you have to make an awkward conversation with the person across from you. So what usually happens is that usually a dialogue starts to happen between different cultural groups. And then what happens is it starts to increase, and then a cultural exchange then happens. So what then occurs is that either you accept the cultural exchange or you reject it. I argue we do the first. Why? One of the best examples to prove this is interracial relationships. So a question to everyone, who here has dated someone outside of their ethnicity? So hands up if you dated someone else. Be honest, there we go. Who here has dated a Polynesian? Who here hasn't? Okay, that will change soon. Sweet. So here's some really interesting statistics. So in New Zealand, our most common interracial marriage is between New Zealand Europeans and Māori. And what we found with people who were born, ethnicities who were born in the respective countries to those born within New Zealand, in comparison, those born in New Zealand are more likely to date or marry someone outside of their ethnicity, or outside of their race. So that just proves why the stairs is, for me, where the magic happens, where we see ourselves intimately conversing with people we never would have expected. So for me, from primary education all the way to tertiary now, I have met people from all over the world. And that's what multiculturalism is about. And that's why it involves us directly. It's because we're the only generation that has that much exposure compared to our previous. And so this is either a good thing or a bad thing. So for me, I'm going to give you kind of a personal kind of experience with kind of what bad looks like. So in my second year of university, I was studying law and commerce, and this was in Victoria University. So I went to my commerce ball for the first time. And I was looking forward to it. I was like, yo, this is a ball. It's going to look good. Hopefully I find someone. Didn't really that night. But so I got there, and I remember just, I didn't feel out of place. I felt, different people from different walks of life were there. And so I was like, yeah, cool, I'm with my peeps. And then in the corner of my eye, I see someone kind of like staring at me. It's just like, we didn't break like eye contact. And I looked at him, and his jaw, his bottom jaw just was so wide. I've never seen a mouth that wide. It was just weird. So I looked at him, and I was like, bro, are you okay? Is there something I can help you with? And he didn't say anything. So this guy was just like a normal, looking European guy, just a white guy from New Zealand, normal. And so I went up to him and I was like, bro, is something okay? You want me to call the ambulance or doctors or something? and then the only thing he said to me was like, oh my God, it's Julian Savia. So, so like, I'm not gonna sit and be like, oh, I'm angry. Like, I get mistaken as the All Black all the time. No, I'm joking. So, like, in terms of, I'm not saying that culture exchanges is always productive and normal. We find ourselves accidentally kind of communicating with people from different backgrounds and different nationalities and cultures. And so that's why we're so different. And the reason why this is the end of the world as we know it. Oh, actually, before I go ahead, I know a lot of you are wondering, why is it only the children from the bottom floor that's going up the stairs? What about the children from the top? What about the privileged ones up there? Well, they have their own form of transport. It's called the elevator. I call this the PE, the privileged elevator. Nothing else. It's just the privileged elevator. So that's why when you see, I don't know, like I don't know if you met someone from like a really elite background, you can tell they never really met anyone outside of their racial cohort or group, and so it's always awkward to have a conversation with them, only because they're taking the elevator. If they decide to take the stairs with the rest of us, we can see a change in that. But they do them and we do us. So now we moved back to the stairs, I guess. So why is this the end of the world as we know it? Well, I'm just going to name some figures. So Chloe Swanberg, who's an MP for the Green Party, went into New Zealand Parliament as the youngest MP in history. She's a millennial just like us. We see Jacinda Ardern, who's technically not a millennial. She's 1 year off. But she led a party and carries issues with her that our generation actually finds very important, such as mental health, race relations, etc. The reason why I'm saying this is the end of the world as we know it is because as we kind of gradually take up the stairs, we take the top floor. And as we see ourselves taking the top floor, we're starting to change the old world. So what happens is the old world dies and the new world begins. And that's who we are. Because we've been so exposed to different generations, different multicultural societies, compared to our previous generations, we have different experiences that they never did. And so what happens is when we take positions of influence, take positions of power, we change it compared to our experiences. And so that's why I believe as we continue this road, as we progress through as a multicultural society, we can see the old racial hegemonic kind of view on things change. And so what it basically means is that the millennials are coming. So I like to say this joke. I like to say this joke a lot. So it's how the older generation views us millennials is how Republicans view immigrants. So we're slowly starting to take their jobs, their livelihoods, their women. I don't know if you look that way, but again, we see that change come from us. And so, kind of. During these TED Talks, and a lot of times you see, all of you watch TED Talks, they usually propose a question, and then they kind of ask you to answer it. I'm not going to answer it for you. I'm just going to say, you do you. The only reason that is because the reason why I find this world so beautiful is because it's filled with multiple people from all walks of life, and with them, their own opinion. And to me, multiple opinions make constructive conversation. And so I'll leave you with this photo. These are significant figures to me. These are my parents, okay? So they came during the Pacific migration to Aotearoa, the land of opportunity. And to me, they passed me the torch to carry the family through the stairs. And so I know I talked about us taking the journey, and I kind of attacked the previous generation. But you have to remember, as we change, as we see ourselves immersing with different cultures, we shouldn't forget who we are. It's because a lot of people perceive that your parents come here and they sacrifice their dreams and ambitions for you. I don't believe that. I believe they're living their dreams and ambitions through all of us. And so let's carry this torch through this new multicultural society. Let's carry it and not only make it a world where everyone has equal opportunity, but a world where we all see each other and be sympathetic of our own struggles and oppression, and make this world a better place. So thank you for the opportunity. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Thank you.